Hello, everyone.
Hola, bona tarda, benvinguts. Hello.
Bienvenidos. So, yeah, we are going to start. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. This session is going to be a little bit different. It's not like the usual panel. It's not the usual session. Hopefully, it's a little bit more dynamic. And we are here in like a living room, and we're going to have like some guests on the living room time to time. And yeah, do you want to say like what we are going to speak about?
Yeah, so we're here to talk about the best of the adventures, which is the metadata adventure. So basically, trying to go over the process that happens between an artist or a songwriter creates some music. After that music is distributed, it's sent across the supply chain to platforms like ours at YouTube, and up to the point where that artist gets compensated. And we are going to be focusing a little bit on the data aspect of it, how the different stakeholders are interacting. And as Sara was saying, we're going to have a bunch of those actors coming up on stage to talk about what is their part of the process.
Yeah, but before that, we didn't introduce ourselves.
Yes.
So, Jakue, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Jakue. I'm the international head of YouTube Music Publishing Partner Engineering. That sounds weird. What do we do? I sometimes don't even know, but basically we sit in between our partners, in my case, music publishers and collecting societies, and our engineering, product, and business teams to try to make things work when there are deals that platforms license, and then we are like the team that interacts with our partners to make sure that they get the data that they need, that we get the data that we need, answer questions from their operation and whatnot, so that effectively we get, in the case of publishing, ownerships, and then we facilitate payments for them somehow. And Sara?
Yeah, so my name is Sara Gozalo, and I'm also the international head of YouTube Music for label, partner engineering, so similar what Jakue does, but on the label side. We are a little bit closer to the artists sometimes, and like the labels themselves. And in the same way, we do a lot of like data reporting, product activation, product feedback, and everything that is around that. So we are like the bridge between the product side and the industry.
Yeah. Sara gets more invites to concerts than I do. Besides that.
And with that, we are going to give you a little brief overview of like where we are on the YouTube side, and later we are going to start inviting some guests into the lovely living room that we have today. So yeah, like on the YouTube side, what we try to do is to have like a platform or a place that is the best for like artists and music fans, and in order to do that, it requires a lot of like small parts, and all of them needs to work perfectly. And so I mean, as we all know, everyone can upload a video to YouTube. So YouTube is an open platform, and everyone can upload content. And I always say this, that it's like when we started, we were like a small autonomous town that everyone knew each other and everyone knew like what others were doing. But suddenly, now we are like a huge city, and sometimes this requires some kind of like checks or like policies or similar things, because, and I'm going to allow Jakue to give the big number.
Yeah, there's like 500 hours of content uploaded every minute. So like by the time we've been talking here, like there's been like more content that probably you can consume in a healthy amount of time in the coming days, right? So like as Sara was saying, like compared to other music platforms, like we are a platform beyond music. There's a lot of content being uploaded, and that makes our job sometimes a little bit more challenging and a little bit more fun with everything that user-generated content entails, right? And thankfully, there's a bunch of technology that is developed and that has been invested across the years, working together with our industry partners to make this work. And that's basically something that probably you all have heard, which is Content ID, and like it's kind of the backbone that allows this system to work in the vast majority in an automatic way.
Mm-hmm. And this has allowed us to get to the big number that is on the right side of the screen, the 7 billion. So that's the music industry payouts. Part of it, a big part of it, is coming from the user-generated content that will not be possible if we didn't have like tools like Content ID. And the other big numbers are around subscription and like users that we have on the ABOT side. So we have more than 2 billion users on the ABOT side and more than 125 million subscribers for YouTube Premium. But specifically in Spain, that I think is important to highlight some of the big numbers also for the region. We have more than 35.4 million adult users consuming YouTube. What is like a huge number. We were actually checking yesterday.
Yeah, we were like, sorry, this number is too high. Like, how many adults are in Spain? I think it's 39 million adults, like people over 18. So it's pretty much
almost everyone
will use, not that they will subscribe necessarily, but that they will engage with the platform, right?
And with that, we are going to start with the data journey. You ready?
Yep.
So as we mentioned before, we are trying to get everyone represented here, everyone who is part of this journey, everyone who is part of this workflow, everyone who has like a little bit of like data that will contribute to the whole ecosystem. And we're gonna speak about this, specifically these 4 sides of these 4 moments. That is the songwriting and the recording, the distribution, later the DSP, so consumption, publishing, and hopefully this will make sense at the end of the session.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. But yeah, so we start then with the first guest and invite into the stage Sophie and Hildur, so they can tell us a little bit more. So big applause for them.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Hildur, Managing Director of OPA Community.
Oh, and I'm Sophie, and I am an artist at OPA Community.
Yes. So thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
If you missed it, Sophie performed earlier today at 1:30 upstairs. It was amazing. So super excited to have you here. We had a lunch before this, and something we were discussing was that most of the things that we do are for artists and for songwriters, but those are rarely on stage or they're rarely involved in the conversations. So thank you. It means a lot having you here. And I guess we can start with the question. You already introduced yourself, so what it would be great is, and that can go for you, Sophie, first, like what do you do and why it matters? I think it's pretty obvious in your case.
Okay. So I make music. It's like a fusion between piano, but also a bit of pop, like an influence of a little bit of everything. Yeah, that's what I do. And then I think, I mean, for me, music, ever since I was growing up, like it was a really important part of my life, just in any capacity. And now it's like releasing music and being able to kind of like touch people the same way is really nice. And also I've been able to create so many friendships and working relationships that are really like enriching my life. So I feel just really lucky and happy that I get to do this. Yeah.
And on that side, when you are interacting with the industry, like when you are like composing, when you are creating the music, to what level you are like conscious of what's happening next?
I'm very conscious.
Okay.
I'm very conscious because I started like like when we first started talking, I was self-managing myself. So I had no team. And it was so nice to like be able to build that and actually know how it works, because then you can actually talk with, for example, the label manager and say, hey, this is what I need. Because if you can't really understand what you as an artist need, then it's people can't read your mind.
Yeah.
So you need to be like, okay, I would need help with this and this maybe I can do. And so I think it's very important to have your goals really like straightforward. Yeah.
And I guess that is a good segue for me to ask Hildur, what is it what you do and what is your relationship with Sophie? I think before you were mentioning also how maybe things that we are going to be discussing today you don't necessarily discuss with an artist, so that you were also particularly interested in hearing what she had to say about that. So can you describe more?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sophie is very aware of the process, but I think we haven't really sat down and discussed, when you hand me, let's say, a new song, what happens immediately after. So maybe just for context, obviously, as managing director for OPI, I'm also a label manager. So, you know, I'm part of the A&R process. We discuss demos, Sophie sends to me. Once the song is finalized, it's then my job to make sure that reaches, you know, you guys, the audience. Yeah, so that's basically our main working relationship, and obviously the opportunities that come with that, and trying to optimize everything.
And on that point, I think maybe for Sophie, maybe for both, but start with Sophie, like, so you handle the track. Do you care anything around like data that is associated with it? Like, do you input yourself, like your name, or like people who work with you in the studio, or things like that, or is like someone else doing that for you?
Interesting. I've never thought about it.
That's me.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, I mean, of course, I know that it doesn't happen automatically. Like, you know, there's a whole chain, like you said before. I'm just, honestly, when I send demos, I'm like, oh my God, what are they going to think about it? So I'm just mainly nervous about how the music is going to be perceived.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so you,
and you were saying, Hildur, that's like...
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you sent the demos, they're always fantastic, by the way. And then obviously we also discuss, you know, conceptuals for, let's say, artwork, because the next step that needs to happen is, on my end, we need to figure out a timeline for when do we actually want to release this. Let's say it's a song or an album. So there's already there like a strategy for time. Then I can just kind of quickly walk through the process of, you know, the actual steps. So obviously we need to get the works registered. So that's on my side. You know, I get the relevant info from Sophie. I then get the ISRC codes. Everything is then input into a metadata document.
Yeah, this fun stuff.
The fun stuff, the data. I mean, this is important because you need to credit your collaborators, everyone that had a hand in it. And I think this step is so important, the quality control that's needed here, because it's all manual and there's so much space for human error. And it's all kind of on me, like if I mess this up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Then obviously once that's all done, then it's time to ingest it into whoever distributor you use. We work with InGrooves. So again, it's a manual process where I then again have to input everything in the right place. And let's just say this is very important because it has happened, not on my watch, but it has happened that the wrong song was uploaded. So on release day, not for Sophie, there was just another song.
Meaning
So-
like the audio file that was delivered was a different audio file?
Yeah, so somewhere in the process, after I had kind of said goodbye to my part of it, something happened in the supply chain, and then on release day, it's the wrong song.
Okay.
So again, quality control is just so important with the step, because you won't really be able to check after you adjust until it's release day. So that's always a bit of a terrifying moment for me. Not to scare you, but
No, for me, it's
you know,
already
did
terrifying.
things come out the way we wanted them to?
Yeah.
Hopefully, most of the time they do.
and on that point, like you're saying that people, like things can go wrong. Is there anything that like could make your life easier? Someone else in the supply chain or someone else in the industry that could facilitate this kind of process for you? Because I mean, you are pretty aware of this, but like, are you aware of what happens if like you put like your name ground or your metadata ground when you are sending the file, when you are sending the song? And like, that's one question. And the second one I was saying is like, what would you ask to the rest of the industry or rest of like players in the industry to make your life easier?
Question. Yeah, I think sometimes I struggle a little bit to who to go for certain topics.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, is this label, is this management? And sometimes that's really confusing because also kind of there is a small supply chain within the artist as well, where like everyone is communicating and then some things are like getting lost because either I communicate it to the management and then the management goes to the label or the other way around. So sometimes I'm just like a little bit like, who do I ask for this? And I don't necessarily know how to make it easier or how to, I don't know, I guess it also just comes with time, like adjusting to everyone working together in the same team for a certain amount of time. But yeah, I also learned that you have to be really specific, like really specific, really direct. So yeah, these things that I'm learning in the process, and still continue to discover. I also, like, my needs are changing. Like sometimes I need this, and some other time I need some other type of help. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
And for you?
I mean, to this point, I think having more transparency in the process would be great. Like, if there was a way for Sophie to just see somehow the steps that I'm creating, to also know that there is like quality control there and get some reassurance. And also because the other thing we didn't mention yet is, obviously once the song is out, there's also data that you can then analyze from, how's the song or album performing. And the platform we use at the moment, even though it has a lot of great options for, here's the most recent playlist that you got and here's how it's streaming, I can't really export that and send that to you. So also you are not really aware of, and not that you would be checking that on a daily basis, but I think it could be helpful for you as an artist.
Nervous.
Yeah, to just at least know that it's there at your disposal.
Yeah.
So I think that could be good. So there's
So, like,
maybe
more visibility and more transparency from
yeah,
you, so
and
that you
maybe
get
just a
to
way,
share.
and maybe eliminating some of because it feels like there's a lot of different steps, that I have to take and manually put things in. Shouldn't it just be easiest that there's a platform where Sophie can put in things, I add to them, and she still has access to everything, and we see how things are going to appear on the DSPs before they come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be nice.
So more transparency from
Yeah.
your actors that are between you and the platform somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that you would ask Sophie, and I'm going to put this in the spotlight a little bit here, that would make your job easier?
Yes. Ask me.
I didn't get that. Can you say that again?
If there is something that you would ask Sophie that will make your job easier, like I understand you get the songs from Sophie and then you pass them along.
No, I think
Super simplified.
No. With her, it's very straightforward because I just ask the things I need, the data that I know I have to input. I have my own master documents. I know how it works. It's a fairly straightforward process, and she just gave me everything I need, basically. So it's more how I can give her more transparency, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So anything that you will ask the rest that are going to come on stage? We can leave the question coming for the others, or even for us.
Oh, that's hard. I didn't think of anything. Oh my God.
It can be later also.
Yeah, okay, I think about it.
We have a last one for both of
Yeah.
you, which is, do you imagine your role changing? Like if suddenly we fast forward to 2030, do you, from a creative perspective or from working with creatives and stakeholders in the industry, do you see your role changing? Do you see you playing the game in a different way?
What?
How do you see yourself like in 2030? Like, do you see yourself creating music in the same way? Do you see it evolving? Do you see it changing?
Oh, no, it's always evolving. I don't think it's always like this one formula fits all the songs, all the albums or something. So even in this, like, year and a half that we've been, 2 years that we've been working together, I've seen such a crazy change from the beginning to now that I think in 5 years it's going to be even more change and hopefully like a positive, just a positive growth. So I'm excited to see where that leads me.
Okay.
I think for me, we touched on it at lunch. I think it's something about, obviously, with technological advances, every day becoming more and more, there is something to be said about making our kind of manual workflow easier for us so we can focus more on the creative side. That would be my hope, that, for all of the manual things that I'm inputting, there's just a way to streamline this process so we can actually focus on what really matters, which is the music and really growing the artists.
Cool.
Super.
Okay. So with that, we can finalize this small bucket. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And we are going to move on into the next step. So we have the song, it's recorded, it's composed, and is working with the artist manager. And the label has it. What happened next? And I think next we need to send this track somewhere. We need to find a way to use this track in different platforms and distribute it. And that is where we are moving on. So we are moving to the distribution side together with Christopher. So yeah, coming to the stage. So we invite you to the living room.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
You can introduce yourself.
You want to
Yeah?
introduce yourself, Chris?
Yes, my name is Chris for short. I work at SonoSuite. We are digital distributors, and there I do mostly the side on the relationship with DSPs such as YouTube, Spotify, and others, mostly on the licensing part. But distributors is what we do.
Why do you say what you do matters for the whole conversation today?
I think why what we do matters is best understood when you think about the scale of the industry. What you said before, right? How many minutes of audio are being uploaded every minute. If you think about it, things very simply. An artist going knocking on YouTube's door, sending a song. Why do I need an intermediary? But what we do, I think, is at core a technological solution that makes sure that all those hours and hours of music gets delivered to all of the different platforms on time and with the right data, right? And then also you have a question of, which data goes where and how do you organize that into an interface that is understandable for artists or labels.
So to what Hildur was saying before about streamlining, you help streamline things in a way, not
Yes,
super
exactly.
simplifying.
That's it.
And so how do you interact with the previous steps, so like the label managers or the artists? Like how much is like interaction with that, or even like labels themselves? Because I know you also do B2B. And how do you interact with the DSPs? I mean, we mentioned before, like we have like 500 hours uploaded into YouTube, and this created a question in my mind. Like I was wondering how many songs get delivered to you on like a monthly or daily basis, if you have the number. If not, maybe I'm just like making this up now. But like, I imagine it's a lot. But like, yeah. So the two questions is like how you interact with the industry and how many tracks you have.
Sure. So I don't have the exact number. It's in the thousands per week. And that's, of course, very different kind of content, and that also speaks to the different kinds of relationships that you have. I think we are B2B distributors. That means we only distribute labels or other forms of music businesses. We don't distribute artists directly, but there are distributors for that as well. Many of our clients actually do that. And so a relationship with a label, for example, is very different than a relationship with a music business, which works with the long tail, right? All the independent artists that don't have maybe a label that is distributing them. With labels, they have, I guess, more control. They know what they're doing in terms of data, especially as well, how to distribute things. And so there you can focus much more on quality, on special services. Maybe there are certain features available on your platform which aren't available to everyone, which you can then make available to labels. Which are not so easily made available to independent artists, right? Because we live in a fantastic day and age where an indie artist can distribute and have access to the same digital market as a major, right? In theory, and but that also means that there's, I guess, less awareness or a lower level of professionalization that goes on, and so with that kind of catalog, it's usually a much more assisting role, right? And I don't know if that answers the question, but I guess how we deal with the previous part depends a lot on who the previous site is, yeah.
And what would you say are one of the key challenges? Like you mentioned, both bigger labels where there's maybe more knowledge and control of the catalog, or like people that will be targeting like larger, like scale services in a way. But what would you say the one big challenge that you have with either or?
Right, so with labels and I guess more professional catalog, it's of course precision. Things have to get there correctly on time, and has to be published at the right time. And versus with let's say more the less professional catalog, it's the challenge. Of course, it's much more catalog, which. You have to. What we also do is quality checking everything, right? And so there's of course also lots of bad actors around in the industry. Not everything is just nice indie artists distributing. There's actually pirates out there trying to make some money, and so we have to sort all of that out. And so that's, I guess, the main challenge for us is sorting out the noise from the quality. and then also making sure that we stay on top of new features that are being made available on YouTube, for example, that we somehow make that available to the quality catalog that we distribute.
On the speaking about data, so on the data side, we were speaking yesterday around the songwriter metadata. That is also a good bridge to the next step. But like, are any other metadata or data or similar thing that could help your business that you could ask for either artists, labels?
So I guess what we would ask for is just, in general, more awareness around data. You know, that it is very difficult sometimes to tell people, you know, sit down, decide who gets how much, and especially then, you know, at some point someone has to input that information into a space where it then gets packaged and sent out, which is what we do, right? The packaging and sending out. For us, at a certain point, it's, you know, how do we make the solution as understandable as possible? But we can only get up to a certain point, right? If the artist is not aware that he's not only the performer in the song, but he's also a composer, right? That he has also composition rights, and he can input that in this field, which he maybe doesn't understand. And so, for us, it's again a challenge to keep advancing technologically and make that as understandable as possible. But what we would ask for is, more awareness, you know, and maybe also more broadly for the industry, more education, which we're seeing a lot now, which is what we're doing here, I guess. Yeah.
100%, I think it's one of the main reasons why we're here, right? And we see at the end of the day, like that data that Hildur was collecting from Sophie and gets passed along to a distributor like yours eventually arrives to us, right? And in our chat yesterday, I recall you were mentioning that now you're making songwriter metadata mandatory. And I was very, like, my reaction was like, you made my day, and I mean it, my day, my week, in the sense that, and it's one of those disconnects that we typically talk about, which is record labels are releasing products that don't necessarily need to care too much about other constituents that are involved when that creative process happens, right? And in this case, it will be songwriters. And when we have our next guest, we will speak a little bit about what are the implications of those things or those steps happening properly and people caring and understanding and being aware of why this matters down the line, and what are then the implications, right, that it has for platforms like us that will allow us, will make our job easier and make somehow a healthier ecosystem, right? And I guess in that sense, what will be interesting to know is also how you imagine yourself, like the same question we were asking our previous guests in this beautiful living room today. Like, how do you imagine this changing somehow towards 5 years, 2030? And how do you think that the role that distributors have will be impacted or not?
So it's being impacted already. I think it's a well observable trend that already, you know, distributors are having to integrate publishing rights in some form or another to their pipeline, and especially, you know, with new consumption forms coming along and AI, of course, and everything else. It's just the entire industry is in a much better position to move fast if they can clear both rights as quickly as possible, right? And I think that's for sure that's the direction where we're heading, right? Is the integration of those both sectors. For the rest, I think in some form or another, you know, distributors have always been around. They will always be around, and again, what we solve is a scale part, right? If it's a one-on-one business, there's probably no need for us, but it's making those thousands and thousands of tracks available on many stores or many outlets, and then every outlet is different in how they want the information, what genres they accept or not, and we're somehow in between that, trying to make sense of it and try to serve all the parties as best as we can. So it's inevitable that as consumption patterns change, we have to change what we offer, and and where it takes us, you know, beyond that, I don't know, but for sure, publishing and masters is going to be integrated, and AI is coming along, and we'll all see how that plays out soon.
Well, thank you. I was going to ask, like, how can YouTube help you a little bit more as last question?
Don't invent so much stuff.
We can do that. I'm sorry.
No, I think YouTube is actually on the probably among our favorite partners, because they make it very clear in terms of what you guys expect from us as distributors, right? Here's how we want you to deliver this, and here are the consequences if you don't. Here's how we evaluate you, and having a system for evaluating us is great because it helps us to focus on specific, things to solve. Whereas maybe other places we deliver to, they're much more laid back until there is a problem and they realize it, and suddenly it's a huge issue which we have to then back engineer. And so I wouldn't say there's anything specific. If we could ask for something to make our life easier from a lazy perspective, is just standardizing, I guess, data across the industry. I guess that would be a huge one for everyone, because not everyone is using the same data for the same things, and so that starts, from the beginning. How do you conceptualize your music? What genre is this? And maybe the way an artist understands his genre is different from the way that maybe the consumer understands it. And for us, it's just, okay, we're taking an input and sending it along, and wherever we can, we optimize and we correct when we talk to labels, for example. But it's a huge part in your discovery, and so But the challenge is that every store is a little bit different, and so the data is a bit different, and we have to kind of be in between there. So having a standard would be much easier for us, because we could have just one panel where it's clear these are the industry data, and you input them and we send them.
It would be easier, to be honest.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
I don't think anyone is against it.
No, I mean, to go back on what you said and then to touch base on that, I think you were saying, like, don't invent too much stuff, and I think that's inevitable in a way. Obviously, we launch new, like, platforms like us, and not just us, but like there's new product launches, and I think it's very significant to make an emphasis of what you were saying, that traditionally there's always been connects and disconnects, but like the industry has handled recording rights and publishing rights not necessarily at the same time or with the same cadence, and I think it's tying it with the new product launches is more important than ever that these things happen as close as possible, because that enables us to launch new products. Like, there are a lot of incognitas of many of the products that are to come, and I think you mentioned some of those. I'm purposely ignoring the word, but you know what I'm talking about. And I think that's it's a big opportunity for us also when it comes to standardization, and when it comes to fixing a number of pipes that historically the industry either didn't have the need or didn't have the particular interest or the incentive to fix, right? And we are seeing, and that makes me very optimistic, that those are now business needs. There are business needs for us platforms to launch new products. There are business needs for distributors like you to be able to capture more of things that maybe historically you didn't care as much, but now you're being asked, like, what about publishing rights, or what about synchronization? Because there's products that they will require of those rights. And I think standardization is key. I sit in an industry organization that is called DDEX, Digital Data Exchange, involved in a number of working groups, and recently sitting on the board as well. And that's what we try to do. We try to define messages that distributors like you will send to platforms like us, or like platforms like us will send to collecting societies and music publishers around the world. But I would say also that the standards are they're very important, and a big shout out to DDEX from here. But their standards are as important, so they're only going to define a template. And the template is going to be as good as what you write on it. Like, a piece of paper can be very fancy, and I know you can buy the fanciest notebook, but if what you write on it is not very good, then your text is not going to be of better quality. So I think the same thing happens with the standards. The standards are essential because it will define the framework for people to understand someone that is sending something and someone that is receiving something, what's going on. But then this collective understanding of the importance of what is being put in those standards, I think that's where we are moving towards, right? Making sure that there's good data being inputted there.
Yeah, for sure. we've come a long way, and DDX, of course, without them we would be unable to do what we do, and there has been a certain degree of standardization, right? Every DSP asks for a certain minimum of data, and it seems absurd, but from a company that comes from more like a master's background, when you're suddenly thinking about moving into publishing, it scares people because it's just a world of different data, and how are we going to collect it? Do the people that we already work with, do they know this data or not? And then you go looking in your database, okay, here's one, so you go ask them, and yeah, it's to me, sometimes it's crazy to think that we're all in this industry, but yet sometimes we have,
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, this getting together is I think what's happening now, right?
Yeah.
This bridging and opening the doors, and maybe it is scary, but it's one step at a time. Maybe now we're just making mandatory, the name of the composer, and then the next stage we'll do something else, and then maybe we will know where it's registered, and that's step by step.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect bridge.
Yep.
For the next guest on the stage. So, well, thank you first.
Thank you.
Chris.
And we are moving on into the scary part, as Christopher said, into the publishing side. It's the scary part, I think, because it's the most unknown one. But that's why we have Camille here.
Thanks, guys. Here I am, the boogeyman.
So, Boogeyman, Camille, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Camille Latorre. I'm VP of Digital Legal Affairs at Warner Chappell Music. Warner Chappell Music is the publishing arm of Warner Music Group. And so, we represent a vast array of different songwriters from all over the world. And as just touching on what's been discussed in the panel, I love what Christopher was saying about the utopia of having kind of combined recording rights and publishing rights together, because I think that would save us all a lot of problems. But we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah. So I guess the question we've been asking to everyone is why it matters what you do?
Sure. So here I work in a digital team, which means that we basically license our rights to digital platforms such as YouTube, but other kind of platforms that are non-UGC, classic music streaming services. And I think the key thing is that when you have a label or distributor, you're talking about an asset. There is a recording that everyone knows about, and that's the one that's publicized and the one that you stream. When we're talking about compositions and songs as publishers, there is no kind of actual one tangible recording. You can pick up whatever instrument, do a version of that song, and you are playing that song. You are playing the asset that we are controlling. So it's intangible. There's no kind of physical defined version of it. And so you have to effectively define that with the data. And if you don't do that, people don't get paid. And people don't know what's happening with what streams are going through. So really, in a kind of mad way, it underpins everything that we do. If we don't get the data right, you could be the best songwriter in the world, but you're still not going to get all of the income that you owe because of the quality of your song. And that would be a disaster.
And I think on that point, you interact with probably almost every actor in the same way that others, but you interact with the artist maybe, or the artist manager, or you should, if they actually register the song in the publisher side. But you also interact with the DSPs, with us. Probably you interact with the label sometimes. What would you ask to these people?
Sure. I mean, you've very kindly set it out already very cleanly for us in terms of what the data journey is, and I can touch on it on a really high level, because if you really go into the depths of music publishing, digital data flows, no one needs that at the end of the day after a whole day of panels before people go and hopefully enjoy Primavera sound. So it starts right at the beginning. You have obviously the songwriter-artist relationships, and we have our A&R teams, the cooler colleagues than me who are going and building those relationships. And
the ones with the tickets. No?
Yeah, exactly. I try and get some tickets. You can be friendly, but they're the ones who get it all. And they have to try and do all the stuff that was discarded at the very beginning. You're getting people who are making music, and people don't often want to kind of kill the vibe by suddenly being like, now we need to write down all of the the IPI numbers, and now we need to write down, if there's multiple people writing the song at a time, what do we think the splits are? So when I say splits, a lot of people are writing songs together these days. How are you saying how much of that song everyone owns? And if you wanna kill a vibe in a studio, get people to squabble over how much of the song that they've just written they should have won. So that's always a bit of a battle to have. And you see like loads of different industry initiatives, stuff like the thing that Bjorn Ulvaeus did before. I'm trying to remember exactly what it's called. I'll come back to it at some point. But it's about setting basic standards of when you get in, don't forget to don't damage yourself further along in the process by forgetting to get just the main metadata in place, because that really just greases up the whole operation from then on. Then we get into the publishing bit, and for us, we're taking in all of this data and we are just helping clean and maintain vast databases that reflect all of the different kind of rights and shares that are reflected in it. Because when you have a master, you typically have one owner, which is the label. But for us, a big hit can have 20 songwriters, and all of those songwriters can have different publishers. And so, this is why Jakue's seen the Pandora's box open, and we work together on various things at YouTube about how we can get the data flowing correctly, because there are just so many different fractional elements to it that if you don't manage the data correctly, you're going to end up in a big mess really, really quickly. And so we do that alongside collection societies for anyone who might not be published, or even then we just manage that relationship on their behalf. And then finally it goes to the DSP. And typically with the DSPs, they're collecting the idea of what all these streams are. They're doing it based on the names of titles. They're doing it based on ISRCs if they have them. Maybe if we're lucky as publishers, ISWCs, which are like work codes for compositions. And they just report this huge amount of data. You can imagine how many streams are happening. If you're getting 500 hours of uploaded content, we're basically getting reported effectively every stream that's happening all over the world for us to then match our repertoire to. So in many ways, publishers have become, like everyone, unfortunately, not unfortunately with this panel, but we're all tech companies, right? So we're all basically trying to crunch this data in a massive way to figure out exactly how much our music has been used, so we can then make sure that the money trickles back correctly in the other direction and gets into the pockets of the people who should be paid.
Beautiful, thank you. Sometimes, there's two things I wanted to say. Like you mentioned APIs, ISRCs, and ISWCs. I want to make sure that everyone in the audience gets a clear idea. So API will be like the ID of the songwriter, if I may, no? The interested party information.
Yeah.
Like what it will identify, like you are given songwriter, and that will be given to you by a collecting society, typically.
Yes, exactly.
ISRC is what I guess our friend Chris will send us for recordings. It will be the international standard recording identifier. So for the recording, for what the label and the artist has created.
That should be unique.
And it should be unique.
Should be.
The reality is like there are many.
Underline that.
You take, like Sophie could record one song, but then could record other versions of the same song. So like that mapping from ISRCs to ISWC, and that's I guess what you manage more. That would be.
Absolutely. And one thing I'd just jump on there is that like you're talking about a transition that obviously happened to the move where most people were consuming music digitally, where prior, when you had CDs or vinyl or whatever, before a release by a label, they got all the publishing information up front because there's just a period of time needed for release.
There was time.
They're basically just like you're getting all the disc printed, you're getting everything with the artwork done, you're getting for a big release day, and lo and behold, you have enough time just to sort out the publishing so everyone on the publishing side could be paid. Now, obviously, people have been trying to move as fast as possible, hit moments that are culturally relevant, use the technology that's available to us. But it means that publishing has sometimes become a bit of an afterthought, and things get released with an ISRC, but there has to be a tidy-up process on the publishing side where we're running around trying to be like, here's the ISWC, and maybe we haven't managed to figure it out yet because people are still arguing about splits, or people are still arguing about some of the elements underneath it, about how much they should be being recognized under the work. So I'm not here to blame other people. This is very much like just part of the game that we are trying to figure out. And I think what Christopher was saying is really relevant because there has been a huge initiative, all in various different territories, to try and better link the two, ISRCs and ISWCs. In my native country of the UK, there's actually been something that was mandated from the government about getting the music industry together in a room, and they kind of created like a code of practice for better metadata linking. And what's kind of funny about that is I've never had like a situation before where we go around to like international conferences and stuff, and people come up and be like, "That government metadata stuff, cool." And I'm like, wow, yeah, I never thought I'd hear anyone say that. So yeah, that's great. And so by doing that, people are moving in the right direction. And Christopher's like version of utopia of us having that link is hopefully not so much of a dream. It could be something down the line, but we're not there yet. It's a journey.
Okay, so that's probably like a really good link for like, where do you see this in 2030?
We've done it. I don't
Perfect.
know.
Done.
Easy, I'm off. No, honestly, the game is always changing, right?
Okay.
And no doubt we will fix various problems around the metadata link of ISRCs and ISWCs. But, you know, I promised you actually at the lunch I wasn't going to go into it, but even stuff with just like prevalence of more works because of things that might be AI generated or because people could be just doing various things, you know, maybe people aren't always going to be as incentivized to provide all the data that maybe we've been pushing them to do right now. And the industry's going to have to react to that. We're going to have to think about how do we isolate and identify bad actors? How do we create structures that don't punish people who might be using AI in the creative process, but then in a more legitimate way and building extra layers on top of it and still using some kind of human creation? So, like, it's going to be really exciting to see how this all shapes up. There's always new problems. I think that's just all of our lives generally. But, you know, I take comfort from the fact that we have smart people on all sides of the fence working on it.
Well, thank you.
And you mentioned something. You mentioned the UK Metadata Initiative, which I happen to be part of, and I think we had some Lucy, who was in the ERA, and then was in a panel yesterday as well. A bunch of people that we are here around are participating there, and like we did like some tests and some exercises last year, and it was surfaced like what is the composition or the publishing data that comes from the recording side of things. And some of the things that Chris was saying is like, it's new, and like there's a word that usually comes to, which is authoritativeness. So I don't know how do you see this? Like, are you comfortable by recording parties, including some of that information that may not necessarily be the best, but I understand that it can help your job, but I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
It's a really great point, and I think one of the kind of issues with any general process of linking is governance, right? Not a sexy word to be throwing around, but actually, you know, lots of different actors were going to be contributing to a shared kind of understanding of what these links are, and different people are going to have different views at different times. That's natural. So how do we create a system where people can come together and share those links in some way that has shared understandings about what gets prioritized over others and what is a more credible link than another kind of link? And that's a process that a lot of people are having discussions around now. I know we do a lot within Warner Chappell in terms of we have our own internal link database, but when we work with different partners, we're always actually kind of saying, show us your links, let's just share links, let's see if we can clean it all up together. And hopefully the industry can move to a place where there is more kind of uniform and universal sharing of links. I say this in a very cautious way because I know that there have previously been big attempts to create like global copyright databases. And then, you know, if I whisper like a three-letter acronym, certain people in the room are going to shudder. And that fell apart because of different kind of personalities, as I understand it, and people wanting to hold stuff in a proprietary sense. So maybe at some point, everyone just becomes comfortable enough that those issues fall away, or if they don't, we just at least can set some kind of overlapping standards about how we can talk to one another and resolve those differences, so we can kind of all have our own islands shared by one overall law. I don't know. That's a weird analogy. I'm taking it to a strange place. But yeah, those kind of ideas of linking ideas together hopefully gets us to where we need to get to.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And with this, we finish the publishing side. And that's it.
Thanks for having me.
And I mean, we only have 1 minute for this. But like, I think to finalize or to summarize it, we got like different point of views. I think we also probably need to think about how can we make all these steps a little bit easier. Maybe like the input of the data, or like the transfer of the data, or like us serving the data in different ways that could make it easier for every single actor in the platform. And
just to close, like, I think I would love to hear how you imagine your job, or like something changing, some wish, some message for everybody else.
So I think from the label DSP side, I think it will evolve on how we serve data for artists, for example. I think we have a lot of work to do there to make it easier, what you were mentioning before. Like, it would be great if, like, in the same way that we check Instagram stats or, like, you know, other platforms, social media platform stats, that we do it on a daily basis, that you could do it with your music in an easy way, in a really accessible, easy way that you could, like, understand it. So I think in the next years we will try to go through that. And on your side?
Well, I see those two traditionally disconnected worlds coming more and more together, like the recording and the publishing side of things, and people being more conscious and more aware of how important this is, and information arriving to us in a way that is more granular and more data-driven, so that people effectively get compensated, which is what we all work here for, in a faster and in a better way, you know, so that more creators can get what they deserve, and that in a way that platforms, we can facilitate that their work is exposed, but it's also fairly and rapidly compensated, you know.
Yeah, so yeah, I think with that, we can finalize it, and hopefully in 5 years, we will see of all of us here, and we can, like, just confirm all the things that we mentioned here. So yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy Primavera, and we will see you soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.